Hi, my name is John Mancini, and I'd like to welcome you to this short video presentation in which we look at AIIM's latest best practices research. This particular topic is on the digital workplace, and this is a companion piece that goes along with the broader report, but we wanted to touch on some of the highlights, some of the best practices associated with the digital workplace. So the first thing that we wanted to do was establish a firm link between the digital workplace and the broader digital transformation initiatives that are out in organizations. So when you think about this, and when you think about what's important, 79% say that digital transformation is important to their organization. This is in response to the sense of looming disruption that's occurring in people's business models. And so when we probe a little further, we ask them about the role that information plays in those transformation initiatives. And we get this pretty astounding data point that on average, people expect the volume of information to grow from X to 4.2X just in the next couple of years. And so there is a tidal wave of information they expect to come into the organization that needs to be managed in the context of their broader transformation objectives. And actually, in many ways, stands in the way of the success of those transformation objectives unless they adapt and change the way that they approach the problem. When you look at what that information is, over 60% is unstructured. And so again, it focuses on a set of challenges that many organizations haven't really tackled in a significant way. And so then when you close the loop and you say, okay, people want to adopt a digital transformation strategy, information and information chaos is standing in their way. And do they see a link between the digital workplace initiatives that they have and their broader transformation strategies? For 82% of organizations, there is that clear link. So that's the backdrop to the 4 best practices that we want to talk about that rose out of the research that we wanted to share with you. And this was over 200 different end user organizations that participated in this project. So best practice number 1 is, first of all, agree on what the term digital workplace means, and the italics are important here, to your particular organization. Digital workplace is a broad term, has a lot of different meanings depending on whom you speak with, and so agreeing on what it means in your context is important. And so this is one way of looking at the problem. We raised this issue. How significant a problem is managing the documents and content necessary for knowledge workers to get their jobs done? And as you can see, this definition is a pretty good one for digital workplace. 75% see this as a problem and see digital workplace initiatives as a way to get at this question of the right information to the right person in context. And yet, this amorphous nature of the term is a challenge. And so as you adopt digital workplace initiatives, you have to be really clear about the definitions that you're using, because it's one of those terms that has gotten a lot of widespread marketing use by technology solution providers, but the education around what exactly it means hasn't really followed suit. So make sure that you address this point within your organization and explain exactly what you're talking about when you talk about digital workplace. This question is an easy one, and it's a really interesting one. And we ask people basically, is digital workplace an umbrella for a number of different technology initiatives, or is it a specific strategy? And I should also say at this point that in the survey work, we asked the respondents to categorize themselves as either above average, average, or below average relative to their peer group. And so what you can see here is what you would expect, which is that leading organizations have a much more strategic approach to this question of digital workplace, while lagging organizations tend to just view it as a hodgepodge of tools that they throw at knowledge workers. And that's an important differentiation to keep in mind as you think about your own strategy. Second best practice is whatever terms you use, flip them around and understand the business objectives that you are trying to achieve. So when you think about this, the first thing is that these projects are clearly on the front burner for most organizations. 61% of organizations say they are planning a significant digital workplace project in the next 12 months. It's a pretty high number relative to other technology initiatives. And so when you think about what the goals are associated with those projects, And you kind of tick off what the top ones are on this chart here. Number one, increased efficiency and productivity. Number two, greater levels of innovation and problem solving. And number three, better levels of customer service. So what you have here is a nice interaction between more tactical efficiency objectives and more strategic customer experience objectives. And make sure you understand how this plays out in your particular organization. This question is also a very interesting one. And it's one that we often ask of other technology initiatives. And we ask people to rate the relative importance of the people side of the equation, the tools side, and the culture side. Because those of us that have been through enterprise adoptions understand that it's not just a question of throwing tools at the problem. It's not just a question of technology. If you do that, your project is likely to fail, that the people and the culture have just as much, if not more important, than the tool set that you use. And again, using our little leaders, average, and laggards dichotomy here, you see, again, a pretty interesting result, which is that leading organizations understand that this is just not a tools thing. This is a question of making sure that you understand the needs of your people, understand the culture in which your organization operates, and choose tools that are appropriate to both. Best practice number three is one that is very challenging for many organizations, which is this concept of actually understanding how information is used on a day-to-day basis. That seems like an obvious question. But when you think about how complicated organizations at scale are, when you think about how many different personas there are in an organization, when you think about how many different kinds of roles and responsibilities and information utilization there are in organizations, you really have to break it down and understand what knowledge workers need and want and use to get their jobs done. And in the truth be told category, only 30% of organizations really think they do a good job of that, which makes it very difficult to have a digital workplace initiative laid on top of that uncertainty. So make sure you understand this point. So the last thing I'd like to talk with you about is best practice number four, which is focusing on identifying and building upon the core capabilities that knowledge workers need to get their work done. And that becomes a really important filter, I think, in terms of optimizing your digital workplace strategies. So again, in my leaders and laggards kind of thing here, what we did here is we took a whole set of AIIM technologies, some in the content services arena, some in the process services arena, and some in the analytics services arena, and we asked them to rate the importance of these to their digital workplace initiative. And so what you can see here again is that lagging organizations, look at that blue line, 42% focused on content services. What that says to me compared to the other two sets of organizations is that those organizations are still trying to put some of the basic content building blocks in place. That's not to say that those content building blocks aren't important, but leading organizations have already been there, done that. And now they're trying to figure out how they take those to the next level. And you can see some of that in when you break this down into specific technologies that are associated with the digital workplace and which three are the most important. And again, there's a certain level of expected response here that makes sense, which is that document management is obviously a core part of this. Knowledge management is a core part of this. What you do with your portals is another part of it. How email fits into all that. And so those responses really make sense in terms of some of the basic building blocks. But pursuant to my earlier point, when you again look at this from the point of view of leaders and laggards, it becomes really interesting, and it tells a story that leading organizations, you look at the difference between the two and look at where leading organizations are placing their effort versus lagging organizations. And what you can see is that leading organizations have a forward lean to what they're doing. They have more of a strategic approach. They're looking at how do they take some of those basic email and document management technologies that they started with and integrate them into a knowledge management strategy, integrate them into a portal strategy, take those and apply AI and automation tools to them to make them more effective. So if you want to wrap this up, these are the four best practices associated with digital workplace. As I mentioned, this is part of a broader report that we've done, a broader research study that we've done. And so, when you think about these, agree on what digital workplace means in your context. However you define it, make sure you define it in business terms rather than technology terms. shift your focus from buzzwords to understanding that question of how is information used on a day-to-day basis across the whole wide range of knowledge worker experiences, and then identify what those core technology building blocks are, and do so cognizant of the fact that you need to be understanding of what your digital maturity is, and where you approach digital workplace is largely a function of your overall maturity as an organization and how much of this you've deployed in the past. So this is John Mancini for AIIM. Thank you very much for being here, and make sure you download a copy of the report. Thanks again.
And as always, I would like to urge you to check out our underwriters. Their support is really critical to being able to make this information available for free to you, and we do appreciate that. And I would urge you to go to their website and check out what they do. Thank you.